everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And today we're going to be talking about a topic I can't imagine anyone has any strong opinions about. There's a recall election happening in California. That's right. It's that time of year. All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. Get out there and vote or mail it in. I take it I'm supposed to be excited about Larry Elder. I was literally just driving out before we began the show, and I drove by the Viper Room. That's where the hard asses hang out. I think Johnny Depp owns it. Maybe I'll find out during the show. But it's like one of the last rock and roll spots on earth, the Viper Room, and the marquee says Governor Elder. Wow. A new age is upon us.
Over the Viper Room? Over the Viper Room?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay.
And if you're wondering who that is, let me introduce the co-host today. First, we've got a guy he's a native Californian. Local boy makes good, they said in North Hollywood. Finally, one of our own makes national prominence. Please welcome Hollywood's Mark Pellegrino.
What's up?
Excited. And here to help us understand it is a guy who, frankly, is not even American himself, but seems to have a lot of opinions about our business. Please welcome Nikos Sotirakopoulos.
Hi, everyone. So today my role is just to give you some of the facts so as to understand what is this recall election. So what is a recall election? So recall elections are something which is very unusual. I think it's only the fourth time in history where we have a recall election for a governor. So the recall election is not even allowed in all states. It's allowed in 19 states. And it's a measure that basically says, in case our governor is so bad, if everything goes wrong, we have a way to recall them. Now, it has been attempted numerous times, but it has only been achieved to reach the threshold 4 times. So how do you reach that threshold? You collect a particular amount of signatures. In this case, it was, I think, something like 1.5 million signatures within 160 days. And it was achieved actually earlier. And they are against the Democrat governor of California, Gavin Newsom. And what is the problem that many people have with the governor? So actually, this process started before COVID. So the main issue has to do with homelessness, with the energy prices, with rising criminality. But the fact that the California governor has been one of the strictest advocates of a very draconian approach to COVID only added to the momentum. When it comes to predictions, most predictions say that the governor is not going to be recalled. But who knows? It's a very unusual election because the majority or a big amount of votes is going to be casted by mail, which makes any prediction even more difficult. So how do you recall a governor? You need to, so there are 2 ballots, 2 questions on the ballot. The one question is, do you want to recall the current governor, Gavin Newsom? And the second question is, if you recall him, if you want him recalled, and if he gets recalled, who do you want to be the new governor? And then you have a list of many names. So for Newsom to be recalled, there needs to be the vote of 50% plus 1. And then anyone who has majority from the second ballot is the governor. So first question, do you want to recall him? If the answer is yes, I want to recall him, more than 50%, then on the second ballot, whichever name has the more votes, and the name with the more votes in the second ballot will probably be Larry Elder, then he's going to be the new governor. So these are the facts. I'm throwing the ball back to the people who know way more about California.
Well, I guess that includes me. Now, I've lived here for 7 or 8 years and I am leaving. So my basic approach, my basic response to this whole story is you figure this out, I'm out. But Mark, you, I think, mentioned in a previous episode that you were obviously in California when Schwarzenegger pulled the same thing, total recall, right? And he became actual governor. Wow, a Republican governor in California. What can possibly go wrong? Well, what can possibly go right? What can possibly go? What's going to happen? What came of it all? there's my question. Do you have an opinion about this whole situation that
Well,
comes to mind?
first of all, I should have voted for McClintock in that recall election. I was swayed into voting for Schwarzenegger because I listened to Michael Medved at the time, and I shouldn't have. The man of real principle, the man I think who stood for quote unquote conservative ideas, such as they are. I mean, we all know that that's not really saying much, but it was certainly saying a lot more than Arnold Schwarzenegger, who turned out to be more of a rhino, Republican in name only, and proceeded to, pretty much carry the banner for the left. Now, Larry Elder is a very different story. I think Larry Elder identifies as a libertarian. I think he's had to take up the Republican moniker because that's where the money is and that's where the support is. Unfortunately, he does hold some positions that are in sync with Republican positions. He's anti-abortion, and he has some other ideas that I think are a little hokey, but in my view, don't really affect the state of things here. What's most important is I think, will. I don't think he could do much, given the fact that the legislature is all of one party, but I think he can significantly slow down the regressive progress towards energy scarcity and perpetual droughts and growing homeless populations, increasing crime and disease in the streets, and all of the trends that Newsom and his Democratic compadres have been setting in motion. He can't reverse them, but I think he can slow them down. And he could use the bully pulpit of the governorship to articulate ideas better than Arnold Schwarzenegger could, more effectively even than I think people would consider maybe even a Reagan. I think much more effectively than someone like that. So I think it's important to have somebody like him as a communicator in the top seat.
Wow. And Reagan used to give a lot of wonderful speeches back in his day. So the fact you like Larry Elder more than Reagan, it sounds like, is interesting. Is that right?
I mean, I like him for a number of reasons. I think practically speaking, he's an anomaly. He's something that the left can't handle because he's a guy an African-American man who grew up in South Central Los Angeles. He doesn't come from a privileged background, but he embraces American ideals. He's rational and and stands against much of what I think regressive culture is throwing at us now. And they can't handle him. They can't handle him as easily as they can, a white guy standing up there and saying something similar.
Yeah, so it's things like that that maybe used to excite me a bit more. Like, whoa, a black guy from the ghetto is a free market kind of libertarian guy. Like that would have excited me maybe in the 90s or whenever. But like we've seen this already. Milo Yiannopoulos called himself a libertarian. He was supposed to be like the gay conservative. I can't believe this. He's the gay libertarian. He's breaking barriers. He's making the world a safe space for free speech, and we're going to turn to individualism. And I'm just so over it. I see kind of what happens with these barrier breakers, that the guy who shatter the expectations of identity politics. I've seen time and time again, sooner or later, they all fall in line with the partisan divide. And the way that the partisan side of the aisle on the Republican side has been going lately, I don't expect Larry Elder to be a self-proclaimed libertarian for very long.
Well, but in part, that guy was a rabble rouser, and he was a polemicist on purpose, and he burst onto the scene. Larry Elder's been on the scene for almost 20 years. And his ideology is very clear and very stable. It hasn't really shifted other than his party affiliation, which I think was a sort of practical move for him, considering there's no real alternatives that can be taken seriously. As far as I'm concerned, that's our job. That's our job as objectivists, to go out there and present the political alternative to the Republicans and the Democrats that somebody like a Larry Elder can grasp onto. Now, I've communicated with Larry Elder in DMs before. I've tried to convince him to come over to the Capitalist Party. I've tried to do that with Justin Amash, with a few people out there that I think have enough principles of liberty and enough marquee value to really lift the true alternative party up out there. But it doesn't work for them unless there's a big structure behind it and lots of money. So I don't think you're going to see Larry Elder pull whatever that guy's, Yiannopoulos, whatever his name was. He's not bent that way, but he has adopted some parts of the conservative platform that I find disagreeable.
Shall we give to people the main points of Elder's campaign? I think it's so that they have some context on what we're talking about. So it's mostly, one thing is the cost of housing, and how is he going to keep it down? By repealing useless regulation. So for me, that's a massive thumbs up. Second thing is energy. So make sure that California does not go down the path of expensive renewable energy. How is he going to do that? Number one, not close the last nuclear reactor, I think the last one in California, and allowing oil and gas, the extraction of oil and gas again in California. For me, this is massive, very important. So 2 good points. Third issue is offer school choice. So he comes from a notoriously bad school, a school that is an environment that is not good for the future of people, particularly from disadvantaged backgrounds. So he makes the case for school choice. Very important, very good. Third good point. And then the other point is that he's economically literate enough to understand the minimum wage is not good. But he's not brave enough to make this as his flag. So he says, I don't believe in the minimum wage, but I'm not gonna begin by slashing the minimum wage. So he's a bit of a mix, a bit of pragmatism there, but okay, it's kind of understandable in terms of a politician. So if you think about what is the average conservative, let's say, party line during the Trump era, his party line is much, much, much better. There's not too much nationalism. There's not too much stuff against immigration. I mean, at least what is the core of his message. So I'm a bit more optimist than compared to your average Trumpian conservative.
Well, he's nothing like that, and I think his libertarian roots run deeper than the pragmatism of latching himself onto the Republican Party. But I don't know if this is in his platform. Or you could tell me, Nikos, what does he say about water conservation? Do you know? Is it in his platform?
He has a brilliant take there, where he's in favor of desalinating water. Now, I don't know the economic specifics of this, but the mere fact that someone has the vision to do this, I find this heartwarming. So the fact that someone can think big and cannot go with the boring, low horizons, well, we can't do much. Whenever the nature throws something at us, we just need to step back and retreat our way of life or something like that. The mere fact that he has these big visions about water, again, I haven't seen into this detail, but this is something that I consider very positive and something which is missing today. Today, we experience the politics of low horizons. So I really like this.
Well, and also the politics of environmentalism that subordinates human needs to, let's say, the needs of salmon runs. If you drive down the central California, you'll see fallow farmland for miles and miles and miles, and the occasional sign saying Congress caused drought. Now we're back in a drought here, and a couple of years ago we had such heavy snowpack in the Sierras that by any conceivable measure, if we had proper storage facilities and didn't divert water to these fish runs and these fisheries, we would have plenty of water. We wouldn't have to, sacrifice our own well-being or wants or comfort in order to conserve water. So I would say that certainly water storage facilities have to be rebuilt. I don't think they have been upgraded since the early 1900s. And we have to stop prioritizing fish and invertebrates over human life and prosperity. And if Larry Elder puts that in his program, I think he would be absolutely the best candidate probably to ever march into that office, which he won't. I think he's going to lose, to be honest with you.
It seems like the predictions are saying he will lose, but you never know. They said the same thing about Donald Trump. Few super chats. We got Mary Aline with $5. Thank you. Mary Aline again with $2. She says that describes most of them. I don't even know what she's responding to, but I agree. It does describe most of them. Louise with £4. Thank you. And Jonathan with $4.99. American. Thank you. Tessie, is it pronounced? Thank you for the $4.49. Now, we know that like Democrats or leftists, they have the race card. Like if you're not on board with them, they call you racist. And I think recently Republicans have come up with their own card, which is voter fraud. Anytime they lose, anytime they don't like the way things turn out, it's voter fraud. So I think they're already predicting Larry Elder will lose by voter fraud. I think he might have made a remark or two to that effect, which is very disheartening, which kind of takes a lot of my enthusiasm out of it. Something Yaron Brook has said, which I agree with, is that one of the effects of Trump is that Republicans need to please the Trump crowd to have a place in the Republican Party. That's one of the residual effects. And it's true. So you can't today have Larry Elder running as a Republican saying, okay, forget about Trump, forget about all this conspiratorial nonsense. Let's get back to maybe what the Republicans stood for 10 years ago. No, he would get run out of town. So it's, it is disheartening to see that that's taken place. Also, thank you, Marilyn, for $2. She says, Tazy. Thank you for that. Yeah. And, and of course, I'm the bad guy for pointing these things out, for complaining about Republicans. If it wasn't true, like if it wasn't, if my point that Trump has changed Republicans, if that wasn't true, then why would people jump down my throat when I criticize Trump? If Trump is history, if he's not relevant anymore, right? I could run my mouth about him and nobody would care. But the fact that even people who watch this channel are so protective over poor Donnie Trump, I think tells you the effect that he's had.
But even before Trump, I used to watch Laura Ingraham and some of the pundits on the other side extol the virtues of populism. So Trump is sort of is the ugly demon child of a movement that's been brewing there for a long time. Both sides have accepted spoil system democracy as the right way to go, and they're trying to claim the supremacy of the biggest group in order to dominate politics. So this populism has been going on for quite a while, and nobody's stopped it. So we now see Trump. So the ultimate version of that.
Yeah,
a bit of a need for some devil's advocacy here. At the same time, though, without the energy of the fight back that this whole populist appeal has had in the last years, I don't think we would expect that we would see even the possibility of the discussion about recalling a Democratic governor from California. No matter how abysmal his record is, no matter how bad the way he treated the whole COVID issue is, I think that there is something in this energy that populism has brought to the conservative movement. Unfortunately, it's a populism directed towards populist slogans, not good slogans. Yet every now and then you can find someone who looks better than that, and he can ride this wave of this energy. And that's what I see Elder doing. And another question which we didn't have time to discuss, so Rucka, if you're up for it, we can discuss it tomorrow. The politics of California in general. We have in our mind California as a red state, not red like conservative red as is far left. But if you see it historically, and even till some decades ago, it didn't used to be this way. So it's a very interesting discussion maybe to be had tomorrow. How did California end up so, on the one hand, such a leftist state, and on the other hand, there are scenes that you see in the streets that remind you almost of Atlas Part 3. The homelessness, crime with people striking it off, which is one of the reasons why most of the candidates play the law and order card, even the governor himself. So these are some interesting things that we could further discuss maybe tomorrow if we see that there's any interest, and if Rucka, you're up for it.
I could try. I don't know how much I have to contribute, but yeah, Mark, were you about to?
I don't know how much I would be able to contribute either, but it is the home of the UC system, and Berkeley was sort of the font of, I guess it was the entry place for cultural Marxism in California, and for the growth of the Students for a Democratic Society, and much of the Marxist militancy that we see that is now just part of the structure was born, in Columbia and here, particularly in Berkeley, and it got a lot of purchase, and it wasn't put down. I mean, Reagan, when he was the governor of California, accurately called them spoiled children who needed to be, spanked and put in the corner for a timeout. But nobody else in the administrations, university administrations, let them repudiated them. They encouraged them and promoted them and let them grow, and now they're become part of the faculty and part of the activist factories that are churning out these numbskulls. And I think there might be something also with the plasticity of the California Constitution. I mean, it's been amended, 700 times, something like that. It's literally the living constitution notion of what a constitution is, which is to say no constitution at all. It's whatever the population decides in the moment. And with fluid rules like that, determined by populist angst, you're not going to have a stable system. Eventually, you're going to devolve into this spoil system that we see today. So, that's my sort of thumbnail sketch.
And it's interesting when looking at like locations, like geographical regions like California, which some people want to break into like 6 states, because they're tired of LA, like LA and San Francisco picking all the governors and representatives. But, so one of the sort of semi-beautiful and tragic sort of ironies of the modern world is that because the intellectuals are the biggest villains, you have the like the cosmopolitan cities being like the home of the best and worst elements of the culture. You have, of course, magnificent industry and achievement, and obviously the buildings are very tall, which symbolizes a lot, all types of wonderful things happening, people enjoying what life can be. And at the same time, that's also where the intellectuals are so nihilistic and looking for any way they can undermine this achievement. So you see places like California, they're the best and worst places in so many ways.
I mean, yeah, and as I said during one of our programs, I'm a native here. I was born in Pasadena, raised in Van Nuys, living in Valencia now. I've been here for 56 years, and I want to leave now. And I'm not the only one. Many of my friends who grew up here as well, went to school here, raised kids here, are leaving and want to leave.
That's amazing. Now, we did an episode about leaving. I said I've chosen Texas. You said you were really leaning towards Ireland, which was a whole new level of Cali exit. That's like a whole new.
I was, but I've been having a distressing exchange with anti-Semites on my social media on Twitter, and many of the disgusting anti-Semites come from the UK and particularly from Ireland, which is very disturbing. And they're vicious anti-Semites, vicious. So yeah. I'm second guessing.
Well,
I was about to suggest Greece, but if you have an issue with anti-Semites or people with bad ideas, I don't know.
Taxes. I just want to be left alone. Will the Greek government leave me alone? Okay, then no.
That's interesting.
Except if they give you the celebrity treatment that they give to people like Tom Hanks and stuff. So Greece now has this thing where they try to attract digital nomads or people who, they post on Twitter, my office for the day, and it's the sea in front of it, which is beautiful. But so this government is, so if you can make use of this, so Greece is one of the most beautiful countries if you have a lot of money and if you don't have to work in Greece. So if you live in Greece but work abroad, it's blessed. Otherwise, not really.
Yeah, I love Greece. I have a friend who actually lives there and does that very thing. Lives there, but has a place in New York and a place in Greece, and goes to Greece quite often. But look, that just is, again, that kind of setup, that 2-tiered setup where the government sets up classes of privilege, ironically for the people who are screaming about privilege right now. I don't want to be in that group. I don't want to be the guy cutting in the front of the line and given all these privileges that everyone else doesn't have. I want to be in a place where the government leaves us all equally alone.
Yes, and the Jews really do appreciate all of your support. First, with defending, Israel during the violence, and then for ruling out Ireland. Sounds like based on their anti-Semites on Twitter. I hope the casting people over on those Netflix Israeli series are gonna remember this type of support when it's time to cast the next tall white guy in the Israeli series that they're producing.
So.
Who is one of the biggest supporters of Gavin Newsom in terms of money on the table?
Democrats, which a lot of them are Jewish.
Oh.
Is that what you're getting at, or
no?
Okay.
Netflix, the guy who runs Netflix.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, again, best and worst of crowds. Like some of those productive and admirable people also just are carrying water for their own destroyers and for some of the worst forces. I mean, but again, you can't. It's like you look to the right and you're disgusted. You look to the left and you're disgusted. Both sides of the aisle. And I know people are going to say, well, yeah, but one side of the aisle is worse than the other. Maybe true, but to a lot of people, they just can't go anywhere near, let's say, what the Republican Party looks like to them right now, because to them it's anti-science. They see it as individualistic through their own prism. They see it as anti-woman, anti-gay. So a lot of people, they're going to be Democrats no matter what. And ask yourself, why is that? Why do you think productive Silicon Valley and titans of industry and various industries are constantly giving their money and vote to the Democrat Party, no matter how disgusting the Democrat Party gets? And ask yourself, is the Republican Party offering something that speaks to these people's values?
Right. And I think Iran has said it really well. When the right embraces evangelical Christianity, the left, that predominantly is rational and intellectual and secular, finds it really, really hard to identify that, especially when you see the crazy lengths that group of people will go to violate rights in their own way. So I think we are the secular alternative, that we can turn the people from Silicon Valley around, but it's going to take some time. Well, and look, I think Netflix probably has practical reasons too. It's not just, maybe there's these deeper philosophical reasons that they fear the Republicans are going to bring in some anti-rights, racist or nationalistic seeming government, like Handmaid's Tale. But it's also a fact that's the administration that exists right now. It's the administration that seems highly unlikely that will be unseated, and the administration that Netflix has to deal with when they're trying to get tax breaks and deals for filming around the state of California. And I did a show for 4 years that Netflix did that was filmed up north in the Napa Valley. So I can't imagine that they'd be able to do business with the political elite against them. So they got to take care of themselves.
That's a great point. When we have a lobby system, where we have a system where politicians pick winners and losers, then of course people will end up donating to a politician for more than just their ideology. And of course, people end up blaming the businessmen above all else in every case. Like, oh, look at the corruption, the businessmen, these millionaires and billionaires, they're buying our political system. Well, they were put in that position where they need to pay to play. They need to pay to do business. The problem is the lobby system. We need capitalism, which means you pay for your cost of running a business, but the politicians are not going to help or hurt you either way.
Hey, to me, the gun is where the power is, not the money, the gun. So that's why the politicians should be blamed, not the people who are trying to pay off the gun so that the gun isn't trained on them.
Yes, I agree. The politicians have the gun. And of course, we need to also then remember who elected these politicians and demanded this policy. It's the voters. And where do the voters get their values, their influence from? Largely from influential people in the culture, such as artists and obviously teachers, preachers. All roads ultimately lead, in my opinion, to the classroom, and specifically the philosophy classroom, the place you would least suspect. The place you would expect is the most trivial and unimportant, is actually, I think, the fountainhead of the culture. So, my friends, that is where the battle will be waged and won. And we've got one philosopher in mind who I think can solve a lot of these problems. but you'll never guess who she is. I'll give you a hint. Look at the title of this network. All right, everybody.
We cut these people too much slack, I think. So Netflix has a role to play in the culture. And it's not that they find themselves on the back. It's like enthusiastically giving 3 million people to one of the worst expression of the ideas of the Democratic Party today. I don't see it as an act of self-defense. I see it as an act of endorsement. So again,
that could be.
As Hank Rearden says, gentlemen, I'm sorry, I have to save your neck. Something like that. He says to his fellow businessmen. So out of principle, yes, we have to defend these people against the government. But morally, I think they've already thrown away any tool they have to in terms of defense. They're actually saying, please come and destroy us. And when it happens, it will happen.
And Mariolene with $2 says politicians should not have favors to sell. That's exactly right. The politician's job should not be to regulate, incentivize, nor tax, or anything like that. We need capitalism, individual rights from start to finish. And that's exactly what we're hoping to see. All right, everybody. Coming up at 7 p.m. UK time, Physics by Phone on Clubhouse with Amanda Maxim. And then at 8 on this channel, the Ayn Rand Center UK, we've got HBTV. That's Harry Binswanger TV. And the topic today is the evil of preventive law. Preventive law. This is a big one, folks. People might think, oh, big deal, just don't smoke crack and you'll be fine. Well, what we end up with, and I'd love Larry Elder to come on the show and talk about this, but I have a feeling he won't. You have a police force whose primary focus is arresting drug dealers, and good luck getting them to investigate a complaint involving an actual violation of rights. And that in turn leads to various other ripple effects in the culture that are almost impossible to solve. So I think we need to really take this seriously. And you can look forward to much more of that. Thank you, everybody. I guess we'll jump over to Clubhouse now. Thank you all for the...
I just want to say real quick for any Californians out there watching, recall Gavin Newsom.
All right, there it is. Official sort of anti-endorsement by Mark on this show. Please, Netflix, do not punish him for his views in the future casting. All right.
I was defending them, but
yeah,
they can hold whatever ideology they want.
Yes,
and they better think the same of me, otherwise I'll think they're crummy.
Exactly right, and that's what America is all about for now. Please, everybody, join us on Clubhouse here in just a moment, and thank you all for the super chats. Please consider becoming an Ayn Rand Center UK member. Link in the description and in the chat. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Nikos. See you all tomorrow, and goodbye.